One of the biggest pains in life is comparing yourself to others. We often think, why is she so successful and I'm not? But we don't try to understand. Her path and mine are not the same. Remember, if a fish wants to fly like a bird, it will spend its whole life thinking it's not good enough, even if it can swim across the entire ocean. These days, because of social media, this habit of comparing ourselves has become even worse. We see someone else's success and start to feel like our own life is small. We forget our own talents. And this kind of thinking slowly pushes people into sadness and hopelessness. That's why today's story is for anyone who has ever felt like, I'll never be as good as them. Listen carefully, because every line in this story can change the way you think. Once there was a small village near a town, and beside that village was a big and beautiful forest. In that village lived a boy named Ethan. He was a hard-working and kind boy, but there was one habit that made him feel sad all the time. He always compared himself with others. When he saw his friend Liam always getting the best grades in class, Ethan would think, I wish I was as smart as him. His neighbor Ryan was very rich. Ethan would think, I wish I had money like him. Even if he saw someone running fast, he would think, why can't I run that fast? These thoughts made Ethan feel more and more unhappy. He couldn't focus on his studies. He didn't enjoy doing anything. All the time he would think, I'll never be like them. One day, a wise old man visited the village. Everyone called him Grandpa Joe. He always gave helpful advice, and people loved listening to him. Ethan went up to him and said, Grandpa, I work really hard, but when I see someone doing better than me, I feel really sad. It feels like I'll never be like them. Grandpa Joe smiled and said, Come to the oldest tree in the village tomorrow morning. You'll find all your answers there. The next morning, Ethan went to the tree. Grandpa Joe was already waiting there. He said, Look around carefully. What do you see? Ethan looked around and said, Grandpa, there are so many different trees. Some are tall, some are short, some have lots of fruits, and some have none. Grandpa Joe smiled and said, Now think if this apple tree compared itself to the coconut tree and said, Why am I so short? Or the coconut tree said, I wish I had sweet fruits like apples. How would that sound? Ethan laughed and said, That would sound really silly, Grandpa. Then Grandpa Joe asked, Okay, now tell me, how does this whole forest feel to you? Ethan replied, It feels very peaceful and beautiful. Everything seems just right. Grandpa Joe said, Just like life, every tree in this forest has its own special quality. In the same way, every person also has different strengths. The apple tree gives sweet fruit. The coconut tree is tall and strong. They're different, but both are important. Then Grandpa Joe took Ethan near a pond. There were many fish swimming in the water, and a little further away, a bird was flying in the sky. Grandpa Joe said, Now imagine if the fish said, I wish I could fly like the bird. Would that be right? Ethan said, Not at all. Fish are made for swimming, and birds are made for flying. Grandpa Joe smiled and said gently, Then why do you want to be like someone else? You have your own path. You have many good qualities too. Maybe you just don't see them yet. Find your strengths and move forward with them. After hearing Grandpa Joe's words, something changed inside Ethan. He understood every person is different, and comparing yourself to others only brings more pain. From that day, Ethan stopped comparing himself with anyone. He started focusing on his own talents and his own work. Slowly, his confidence came back. Life began to feel fresh and exciting again. A few years later, with his hard work, Ethan built his own business. He became an inspiration for the whole village. Whenever someone asked him, How did you become so successful? He would smile and say, Never compare yourself with others. If a fish tries to fly, it will always feel like a failure. But if it focuses on swimming, it can own the whole ocean. Remember, the sun and the moon don't shine at the same time, but both are important. Find your path. Walk it in your own way. That's when real success comes. If you like this story, give it a like and share it with others. See you again in a new story.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something I think, well, Pretty much everyone grapples with at some point, that constant nagging feeling of comparing ourselves to others.
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere.
And we've got this really interesting story as our source material today. Simple, but it just cuts right to the heart of it. Our goal really is to figure out how we can shift away from that whole comparison trap.
Okay.
Move towards actual personal empowerment.
It really is a universal thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
This story, it highlights how comparison, especially, with social media just constantly in our faces,
Mm.
it's become even more, well, intense. It often leads to feeling not good enough, right? That diminished sense of self. And it can genuinely push people towards sadness, even hopelessness sometimes.
Yeah.
And the source opens with this great analogy, basically. If a fish wants to fly like a bird, it will spend its whole life thinking it's not good enough, even if it can swim across the entire ocean. So the big question for our deep dive today is, how do we actually escape that cycle? How do we embrace our own path, our unique way to succeed?
Exactly. So this story, it introduces us to a young guy named Ethan. Lives in a small village. Seems like a good kid, hardworking kind, but he's got this constant habit, always comparing
Well, it's
himself.
a classic setup.
Yeah. If his friend Liam aces a test, Ethan's immediately wishing he were that smart. Sees his neighbor Ryan's nice house, longs for that kind of wealth. Even seeing someone run fast makes him think, why can't I do that?
And that really shows a key problem. Ethan wasn't just noticing others.
Yeah.
He was actively using their strengths, or what he saw as their strength, to measure his own worth. And that just left him feeling worse and worse, unhappy.
Yeah, struggling to focus, couldn't enjoy his own stuff.
Right, always feeling like he'd never be like them. And what's really important here, I think, is how comparison doesn't just make us feel bad. It actually gets in the way. It stops us from engaging with our own lives, our own talents. It can be a real roadblock to, finding fulfillment.
That's a great way to put it, a roadblock. And then the story brings in this wise old man figure, Grandpa Joe, who arrives in the village. Ethan, feeling totally down, goes to him and basically pours his heart out. Grandpa, I work hard, but I see others doing better, and I just feel sad, like I'll never measure up. And Grandpa Joe, he just smiles, like he knows exactly what's going on, and tells Ethan to meet him by the oldest tree the next morning.
Classic mentor move, right?
Totally, setting the stage for a lesson. And it starts so simply. Next morning, by the tree, Grandpa Joe just asks Ethan to look around. Notice all the different trees, tall ones, short ones, some with fruit, some without.
Yeah.
Then he asks a hypothetical question.
Yeah.
What if the apple tree compared itself to the coconut tree, wished it were taller? Or what if the coconut tree wished it had sweet apples?
And Ethan laughs, right? Says that's silly.
Exactly. Which highlights something we often miss about ourselves, judging something or someone or ourselves against a standard we weren't even designed for. It's just illogical when you think about it, but we do it all the time. We really do. And then Grandpa Joe pushes it a bit further, asks Ethan how the whole forest feels. Ethan says, peaceful, beautiful, everything seems just right. And boom, Grandpa Joe connects it straight to life. Just like life. Every tree here has its own special quality. In the same way, every person has different strengths. The apple tree gives sweet fruit. The coconut tree is tall and strong. Different, but both important.
Such a powerful metaphor. It's about seeing our own value and the value in, well, just being different, individuality. And if you think about the bigger picture, it's suggesting that real strength comes from that diversity,
Right.
not from everyone trying to be the same. The forest is beautiful because it's varied. So it makes you ask, are we really appreciating our own unique stuff? Or are we kind of trying to force ourselves into a different mold because of what we see around us?
Good question.
And then Grandpa Joe takes Ethan to a pond, another visual. Shows him fish swimming, a bird flying overhead.
Okay, and this is where that core analogy comes in, the one that really clicked for Ethan. Grandpa Joe asks him, imagine if the fish said, man, I wish I could fly like that bird. Would that make sense?
And Ethan gets it immediately.
Yeah, he's like, no way. Fish swim, birds fly. Obvious, right?
Right.
So Grandpa Joe gently brings it back to him.
Then why do you want to be like someone else? You have your own path. You have good qualities too. Maybe you just haven't seen them yet. Find your strengths, he says, and move forward with them.
That is the absolute heart of it, isn't it? It's not just about knowing yourself, but really accepting yourself, actively. And the story says, after hearing this, something genuinely shifted for Ethan. He finally got it. Everyone's unique. Comparing just leads to pain and stops you from seeing your own light, your own value.
Yeah.
And from that day on, the story goes, he stopped. He actually stopped comparing himself, started focusing on his own stuff, his talents, his work. And slowly, you see his confidence return. His life starts feeling fresh again, exciting, because it's his journey now. And it's not just about feeling better emotionally, right? It's about unlocking potential. The story shows that a few years down the line, because he focused on his path, Ethan built this successful business, became an inspiration in the village.
Wow.
And when people asked him, "How did you do it?" he'd just smile and say that line, "Never compare yourself with others. If a fish tries to fly, it'll always feel like a failure. But if it focuses on swimming, it can own the whole ocean."
That's powerful. Owning your ocean. What a great image.
It really is. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, that core message seems crystal clear. Real fulfillment, lasting success. It doesn't come from wishing you had someone else's life or talents. It comes from finding, nurturing, and really digging into your own unique strengths. Ethan's whole transformation from that sad kid to this confident, successful guy just shows it perfectly.
Absolutely, and it circles right back to his wisdom, doesn't it? Never compare. If a fish tries to fly, it fails. If it swims, it can own the ocean. And there's their final little image the story gives us, which I love. The sun and the moon don't shine at the same time, but both are important.
Nice.
So maybe the thought to leave with is this. What's your ocean? Where do your unique strengths really lie? Maybe ones you haven't fully seen yet. And how could finding your path, walking it your way, how could that be the truest definition of success for you?
Yeah.
Perhaps there's a strength you're overlooking right now just because you're busy looking at someone else's highlight reel instead of your own ocean.